Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. Today we're going over some more cards that are looking like they will be trending this upcoming format. We have the Supreme Darkness sneak peek this weekend, and then the set will be out the week after, all of which is right in time for YCS Orlando. It actually does bring with it a bunch of really interesting new cards that are sure to shake up the format, including Primite Ether Barrel, the Eclipse Twins, the Mitsurugi cards, and the Crystron cards, so we should be expecting to see a ton of movement related to those archetypes in the coming weeks. Let's get started. Kicking things off, let's take a look at Dogmatica Maximus. So last week we looked at QCR Nadir Servant and how the card is trending because of the Mitsurugi Ryzeal deck. Well, now we're seeing Dogmatica Maximus trending as well as the search target for Nadir Servant. This card is special summoned easily by banishing the card that you dump with Nadir Servant, and Maximus itself has both players send 2 monsters from their extra deck to the graveyard, but locks you out of your extra deck for the rest of the turn. Now this is cool because it either lets you generate advantage through Garura and Herald of the Arclight, or you can push through boards with Myriologic Aggregator and Elder Entity Entis, and a lot of players aren't really expecting to have to play around Maximus at the moment, so this could rip key pieces out of their extra deck as well. Now Mitsurugi Ryzeal seems to be what a lot of players are assuming will be the best deck in the format after Supreme Darkness releases, so it does make sense that the deck is seeing a bunch of hype now. However, Maximus only actually has 2 different printings, and both are trending upwards rather quickly. We have the original printing as a secret rare from Rise of the Duelist. This card was down at around $10 to $12. We've seen the price shoot up over the last couple of weeks to now sitting at $30 a piece. Its other printing is the ultra rare version from the 2021 tins, which was a few years ago at this point. These were really cheap at only a couple of dollars each before. They're now around $6 to $7. I think that this card is probably only going to be played at 1. It seems that players will probably want to just use 3 Nadir Servant and 1 Maximus as a very condensed engine, so if you are interested in playing the cards, consider picking up an Ultra copy now while it's still relatively cheap. Up next, we have a pretty old card here. It's Soul Drain. Now this card's a really simple floodgate. It prevents both players from activating the effects of monsters that are banished or in the graveyard. Now back in the day, this card was a really effective way for players to deal with decks like Mermail and Dark World that were very graveyard dependent. It has fallen off over the last few years, but it now looks like it's being considered as a really strong side deck option moving forward. At the moment, it shuts off Malice completely, preventing them from special summoning back their banished monsters, but looking forward, it can be useful against Orcust and Dragon Rulers as well. Of course, it doesn't do too much to stop the Ryzeal cards, but it helps against Lacrima and Engraver from the Fiendsmith engine, and it stops the extra deck monsters being sent to the graveyard by Dogmatica cards in Mitsurugi Ryzeal as well. So yeah, this card actually does seem like it will stop a big portion of the format. We just have to remember that it does affect both players, so be careful if you are deciding to play it. Now, despite being an older card, Soul Drain really does have limited availability. It was originally a rare, and then it got a super rare upgrade in an OTS or Astral pack, and it was also available as a Lost Art, but that's it. For either of those holo printings, you're looking at around $15 to $20 per copy, while even the rares are up to $10 to $12 a piece. The thing about this card is that it has such limited availability and hasn't seen a reprint in quite a while. There's actually very few quantities of the card available on TCG Player for any of the different printings. The card is going to be quite difficult for you to find at your locals. If you can find them in your bulk or lying around, however, you might want to consider offloading them, as this is definitely something that could be reprinted in the Quarter Century Stampede set. On to the next one, we have F.A. Dawn Dragster. Now this card is a generic level 7 synchro monster, and it's something that looks like it'll be seeing play in the Crystron deck. Dawn Dragster happens to be a machine, and it can easily be made with Citri and any of the level 5s. Dawn Dragster is a really good card too, being able to negate any spell or trap card or effect. I believe that in a couple of the OCG Crystron decks that I was looking at, they actually chose to run 2 copies of this card, and the deck is actually a tier 2 strategy over in the OCG as well. Now here in the TCG, we'll probably end up just playing this card at 1, but I think a lot of players seem to be really big on the Crystron strategy, with Yugi tubers like Yassine featuring the deck a ton. Now that said, Dawn Dragster isn't a particularly expensive card, but it's something that we should be keeping an eye on moving forward. It has just 2 printings, a rare version from Flames of Destruction, and then it got a super rare upgrade in the 2019 tins. The super rare upgrade went from being $1 or so to now being a $3 to $4 card, while the rare is actually up at $2 each as well. this is something that actually hasn't moved as much as I thought it would have, and I think that's primarily because the Crystron deck isn't seen as something that's going to be tier 1 or tier 0, but rather as a tier 2-ish deck that probably won't be strong enough to compete with Ryziel and Malice. However, I do think it's definitely possible that the deck overperforms here in the TCG, especially if a lot of pro players do end up looking at it. Then we could see the deck perform better than expected and see cards like this being used in the deck start to trend upwards as a result. I do want to take a second to remind all of you to check out our website, MSTmerch.com. Now, over at MSTmerch.com, we have everything that you will need to optimize your Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament experience. We have the basics with white, black, pink, and our new purple matted sleeves, which are my personal favorites, as well as smooth and matted sleeves to double sleeve your valuable cards and sleeves with for tournament play. But we also have some other items that you can really use to customize your collection. We have amazing foil sleeves, including some with the MST.TV logo, and dividers and subdividers so that you can keep your collection perfectly organized and easily accessible. Regardless of if you're a competitive or casual player, I'm certain that you'll find something that you will enjoy over at MSTmerch.com. Alright, now this is what I'm definitely speculating a little bit on here. We have Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. So this card just feels like a generic end board piece for any sort of dragon deck. If you don't know what to make, on your end board, you just make this card and it'll be fine. Now to be fair, it's not horrible. Seals does bounce a card and it summons any dragon out of the deck, so you can summon something like Kwakimaru Drago, or you can summon Bestial Magnamut, who in turn is able to search for any dragon monster from your deck for the following turn. Now this card was used in both Tenpai Dragons and Dragon Link, both of which were very popular meta-relevant strategies, and they were both dragon-based decks. However, I think the card might get a bit more attention with the Blue Eyes deck coming out in February. Of course, Blue Eyes is another deck that aims to flood the field with dragon monsters. I know a lot of the time you want to end your board with actual Blue Eyes cards like Spirit Dragon, but depending on the matchup and the situation, Spheres might be a good alternative. That said, Spheres fortunately was reprinted in Rarity Collection 2, so most printings of the card are going to be pretty cheap and accessible. However, the QCR printing is definitely one that's worth keeping an eye on. At the moment, the card is sitting at $20, which is double the $10 that it was at just a month ago. However, given the popularity of Blue Eyes and how much attention the deck is likely to get, I do believe that the card is going to have a ton of room to grow price-wise, especially since I have seen a couple of lists that were actually playing the card at $2. Definitely something to watch if you are planning to play Blue Eyes when the deck comes out next month. Alright, so this one's a super niche card. It's Ally of Justice Cycle Reader. Now this is actually something that did see meta play before. I believe ABC players used this in mirror matches, since you could search it with Gear Gigant X and use it to banish your opponent's pieces from their graveyard before they could bring out ABC Dragon Buster. Now in the current format, this card seems to be being used again, but this time because of Fiendsmith. Right now, the Bestial monsters are really strong because they can hit Fiendsmith monsters out of the graveyard. However, Cycle Reader is a situationally better alternative, since it can hit multiple cards, and it doesn't have a body on the field afterwards that could potentially conflict with your Ryziel monsters. Fortunately, this card was reprinted in Hidden Arsenal Chapter 1, so the common version is still pretty cheap. It's just the original printings that are now harder to find. The DT version is of course the most expensive. No near mint copies available on TCG Player right now. The ones that have sold have this card at anywhere from $20 to $30. Aside from that, the other version to pay attention to are the super rares. There's two different ones, the original one from Hidden Arsenal and then one from an OTS tournament pack. Either one's going to cost you around $4 to $5 each. Now moving forward, I don't know how relevant this card is going to be. Of course, we do have the new ABC retrains coming in Maze of the Master, so this card should be good in that matchup. I don't know if it'll be good against Blue Eyes or not, but they are a light deck as well. Of course, with Fiendsmith, we might still see the engine running around, and of course it will be good against them, but of course, we could also see the Fiendsmith engine hit by then as well. If you want to be safe, I would pick up a set of the commons while they're still under $1 each, just to have them available, and consider moving those higher rarity copies while they are seeing so much hype. Here's another really random one. We have Priestess of the Ashened City. So the Ashened strategy is one that was a pretty big flop here in the TCG as a TCG exclusive archetype. I think people tried hyping Vidos at one point. Even then, it just wasn't really enough. All things considered, Priestess is actually a very good card for the strategy. It's a free special summon if you have the field spell up, and on summon it searches for any card from the strategy. So with this card, of course, Ashened hasn't done anything. This card has mostly been around $2 to $3. However, within the last couple of weeks, we've actually seen the card shoot up in price, and it now sits at $6 to $7 per copy. I do think that there are a few different reasons for this jump. One, it's definitely possible we could get some sort of Ashened cards in a core set, and we've seen with cards like Subterra Guru or Spiral Double Helix that those cards can often be enough to push an archetype over the top into meta relevancy, so maybe people are hoping for something like that. Two, I do believe that Joshua Schmidt actually did a video where he tried playing the Ashened deck, and that could have led people to wanting to try it out as well. And then finally, the Ashened cards are actually now out on Master Duel, so players wanting to migrate from Master Duel over to the TCG have that as a bridge point as well. So yeah, not really any big or super concrete reason for Priestess to be trending this much, but I feel like there's a bunch of small things that have each contributed to this overall price bump. And finally, the last card for today's episode is Artifact Dagda. So Dagda is something that was used back when Halki Fibrax and Scythe were legal, as you could easily set it to the field, pop it, and then bring out Baron de Fleur. Of course, the other pieces are banned, but we have Lancia seeing a ton of competitive play in the current format in order to deal with the Malice strategy. Dagda is a generic Link 2 monster. It allows you to set an artifact from your deck to the field, as well as if it is destroyed during your opponent's turn, special summon an artifact from your graveyard as well. So the idea is, of course, that you're accessing Lancia. The only thing that's a bit difficult for me to see is how you would go about popping the Lancia in the first place. Of course, you could use like Ryziel Detonator, or if you wanted to go into something additional, you could make a Tornado Dragon if you wanted to. It does just seem a little bit situational. And of course, if your opponent sees this and then a Lancia in your graveyard, they're probably pretty unlikely to attack over the Dagda and trigger its effect and allow you to bring out the Lancia. They're probably going to use their banishing effects before they deal with the Dagda. So for those reasons, I'm not really sold on Dagda. Maybe someone is cooking up something that I'm not aware of. Dagda only has one printing from back in Dual Overload. This is a card that was only $1 before, but has now jumped up to anywhere from $3 to $5 a piece. I don't really see the card being reprinted anytime soon, but at the same time, I doubt that it'll see too much competitive usage, so it's probably something that I would avoid actively looking to pick up right now. Alright guys, that is all I have for today's Market Watch. Best of luck at all of your Supreme Darkness sneak peek events this weekend. I hope you guys all pull a bunch of QCRs. Personally, I'm really looking forward to completing my set of Meowls, but at the same time, I think I do really want all of the Mitsurugi cards because I think I am going to play Mitsurugi Ryziel because it looks like it's going to be really strong. Anyways, guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch episode, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.